Now,
on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
7:06 on this Friday morning in the nation's capital. Thanks for joining us. Coming up at 7:35, Representative Andy Biggs on the Biden impeachment inquiry hearing yesterday. 7:45, Bram Weinstein is going to be giving us his take on whether the Commanders stand a chance against the Eagles up in Philly this Sunday. 8:05, Teresa Summers of Summers Farm. Talk about everything they're planning for your fall festivities starting now. And then at 8:35, Brett Baer, Fox News Channel on the News of the Week, government shutdown, impeachment, all that stuff. Also, in the 8 o'clock hour, we're going to check in with our friends Mercedes Schlepp and Sean Spicer, who joined me at the Birchmere for Yachtly Crew, the yacht rock tribute band that is absolutely awesome. They were great. Patrice Onwuka, good morning.
Good morning. Happy Friday.
Thank you very much. Happy Friday to you, and happy Friday to Jay Greene, Senior Research Fellow in the Center for Education Policy at the Heritage Foundation. And I don't know, Mr. Greene, I mean, you put out this very clear-headed and well-researched report on Virginia's public universities succumbing to and taking a knee to the DEI mafia out there, diversity, equity, inclusion. But George Mason says you got it wrong, so clear this up for us. How are you, Jay? Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on the show. It's easy to clear this one up because all you have to do is count. So we've provided a list of 69 job titles with links to George Mason University websites where they can be found.
Yeah.
And that's how many people are working on DEI. These are bureaucrats, not faculty. These are just staff whose job it is to articulate and enforce an ideological orthodoxy. And there are 69 job titles, and the president of George Mason University insists there are 17. But he won't show us his list. It's a secret list.
That's the key here. The spokesperson for the university said that you're using wrong numbers and math mistakes, and yet never actually says, here, I can prove it. Look, here, so without the evidence, we got to go with what you have provided here. But anybody listening here who is like, well, so what? So they've employed these people who are looking at these things. Why is that a problem? I'm sure all universities. What makes George Mason and in general Virginia's public university stand out to you in this report?
So first, the numbers are quite large at Virginia public universities. This is true also at UVA and Virginia Tech. Where if we compare the size of the DEI bureaucracy to the tenured faculty, they're among the largest in the country that we looked at. And this is surprising because it's a larger DEI bureaucracy we find in Virginia than we find in deep blue states like California or Oregon. So this means that the universities in Virginia are out of sync with the preferences of voters in Virginia, and that's a problem. It's also a problem because they are promoting divisive and inappropriate content on campus. So, for example, there are a series of websites on the George Mason University overall website that urge students to vote for certain kinds of candidates, to sign petitions for certain kinds of legislation, and to donate to certain organizations. So this is on a Black Lives Matter page that they have. And, this raises the question, is this appropriate for a public university to endorse certain political positions, to urge their students to donate to those causes? And why those causes, and why not other causes that the students and the taxpayers of Virginia might prefer?
So, Jay, I think you make some really good points, not just about the administrative bloat, but also the content that is university funded and promoted. That's different than just student groups on campus organizing their own, discussions or, promoting their own ideas. This is actually sanctioned by the university. But when you look at JMU specifically, I think a lot of people think JMU. Well, you've got a lot of departments and and individual schools within the university that tend to lean right, that tend to put out, conservative or libertarian economic thinking.
Sure.
And so it's
the
surprising.
Scalia School of Law.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's surprising that you would see it there. What does that speak to about a lot of the institutions, even those that we take for granted are libertarian or right leaning, whatever the case is? What does that tell you?
Well, look, there are some positive units, academic units within George Mason University, as you mentioned, the Scalia Law School, the economics department, but those academic units consist of faculty who are engaged in the core mission of teaching and research. What we're talking about are bureaucrats. DEI staff are not professors. They are bureaucrats, administration. And so the administration is ideologically in a very different place than some of the academic units. Now, mind you, those are just little pockets within the whole University of George Mason University. Now, we're appreciative that those pockets exist at George Mason, but it'd be nice if the administration itself and its bureaucracy did not take a very radical stance with its own staff.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that Virginia is a standout here in terms of the number of employees compared the student to employee ratio, specifically for DEI, compared to we're even outdoing California on that ratio in New York, the woke state. So have you heard anything from Governor Youngkin's administration or the Virginia Department of Education? I'm assuming this is something they inherited from Northam and McAuliffe over the years. Has there been a response out of Richmond?
Well, look, I mean, I haven't heard directly from them, but you're entirely right in saying this is a problem that has been a long time in developing. And I think the Youngkin administration has done an excellent job of highlighting this issue as a problem, and they've begun appointing people in state leadership positions who are taking on this issue. But look, there's so much of it out there that they can't know where all the problems are. And what we were doing in this report is highlighting the problem for them so they could direct their attention to get at this. And I think they're on it. And now, look, it's also hard because they don't have control of the legislature, so they can't do all the things that Florida has done. But I think they can and will apply pressure to bring this problem under control at Virginia Public University.
Quickly, there has to be an economic impact to having this bloated staff. Obviously, these positions come with high five, even six-figure salaries attached to them, and that gets fed into the cost of the rising cost of college. Do you guys have a sense of just how much generally these DEI positions are adding to the to the cost of going to colleges and universities, particularly at these state schools?
So we did not calculate the cost ourselves. There was another study done by the Virginia Association of Scholars that did calculate the cost, but they did it a few years ago, actually back in 2020, before DEI bloat got bigger.
Yeah.
And now I have to say, while it's millions of dollars, and that's a lot of money to you and me, to a large university, it actually doesn't add up to a very large percentage of the total budget. But look, they should be looking to economize everywhere they can.
Yeah.
And wasting money on these bureaucrats could pay for thousands of scholarships for students.
There you
That's
go.
right. As the tuition increases, and so I just sent my kid off to college at the UC system, and there's a whole lot of expenses that we're picking up, a lot of costs involved there, and 100%, you're right. That's because they're spending money on useless stuff like this. Great stuff. And by the way, if parents are doing what I just did, which is evaluate college choices for their kids, where can they get your report? And how can they actually look at it themselves, not just from your report, but actually investigate the universities that they're considering so they can actually say, okay, this is a criteria that is important to us?
Sure. So all of this information can be found on the Heritage Foundation website. We also have an earlier report called Diversity University that has a data visualization where you could look up every one of the 65 universities that we examined and see how large their DEI bloat is. So if you just Google for Heritage Foundation Diversity University, you can find that.
Thank you, sir. Jay Greene, Heritage
Thank you
Foundation.
so much.
Great stuff. It's 7:16.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live.
From the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
So the Biden State Department, let's look at the achievements of the Biden State Department and national security apparatus. Of course, we had the incredible success of our pullout of troops in Afghanistan. That's one for the history books. And then, of course, we've had the disastrous relationships with Ukraine and Europe, where we actually allowed Europe to be dependent on the Nord Stream 2 pipeline from Russia, so that they, were beholden to Russia for all their energy needs. And then, of course, we stopped our own drilling. We stopped our own pipelines, which drove the price of oil up internationally. That funded Putin's war machine and paid for all those tanks rolling into the Ukraine border. So, the things are going great. And we just gave $6 billion to the Iranians.
Yeah, exactly. That
And
they're not going to use to make weapons.
That they won't use for terrorists. Absolutely.
Say.
It's to feed their citizens, because look at their track record. So things are great. So what is Secretary of State Anthony Blinken doing right now? He's at the White House playing Hoochie Coochie Man.
What?
Listen.
Wait, what?
Oh, yes.
Gypsy woman told my mother.
Oh, there we go.
Before I was born, gonna be a man-child coming, gonna be a son of a gun, gonna make pretty women's.
I can't.
Well, at least he's not stealing women's luggage and doing this in a dress.
It is a low bar with the Biden administration, but that is
true.
What is it about Democrats demanding to do that? They think they're so cool when they grab a guitar and they sound worse than me in front of my mirror when I get out of the shower.
Or last night.
Last night at the Birchmere with Yacht Rock. Yes,
I think it's the Bill Clinton effect. Remember Bill Clinton? He grabbed that saxophone and jumped on Arsenio Hall's show and was playing, but he actually could play. I mean, I guess Anthony Blinken can play
That's
too.
not all he jumped on either.
Well,
all right.
Yeah,
Martin O'Malley.
That's what it is, I think.
As I was just mentioning, Martin O'Malley was over Baltimore. First, he was the mayor of Baltimore. Saw their education system absolutely crater. He saw the crime, the gangs. I mean, The Wire. If you watch The Wire,
I love The Wire.
Then Martin O'Malley, because that's his Baltimore. But he wanted to take your guns away from you because you shouldn't have a gun to defend yourself on the mean streets of Baltimore, or when he became governor. Yeah. So how did he sell the idea? Well, of course, he rapped about it. Here, listen.
I'm Martin O'Malley. Please vote for me, not Clinton or Sanders or Huckabee. The NRA hates me because I don't like guns. Guns. I don't like them guns. But if you look at the polls, you might get the impression the United States president won't be my next profession.
Stop. I'm sorry. I'm not a big hip hop fan, but when your lyric is guns, gonna get the guns, you've run out of words. I'm sorry.
I thought the worst thing you can have during an election is politicians dancing on stage with rappers. I thought that was the lowest. No, this is actually the lowest. When you're trying to rap yourself, you're gonna embarrass yourself.
It did actually get worse than that. No. That wasn't the lowest. He then went on The View, and he serenaded the ladies of The View by covering Taylor Swift. Here.
'Cause baby, now we got bad blood. It used to be bad love. So take a look at what you've done. That maybe now we got bad blood.
Hey! Now we got
No, stop. No,
My
I
ears
can't.
hurt.
It's the worst. This is a trend. This is a theme, and it's got to stop. In fact, honestly, Anthony Blinken singing Hoochie Coochie Man while the world is burning around him actually looks good compared to Martin O'Malley. By the way,
but it's a low ball.
It is a horribly low bar. Oh,
I mean, Here's the thing. Stick to what you do. If you want to sing, go sing after you've left office when nobody cares about you. But you're doing it right now when you think that this is the pinnacle of your popularity. And that's why Blinken he just gave the portrait of Hillary Clinton, to celebrate her and her great accomplishments while she was in office. And now this is the next step. He's setting himself up for his post-office career in doing covers of Hoochie Coochie Man.
Hoochie Coochie Man.
I mean,
by the way, if you're sitting there wondering, saying, "Oh my God, I forgot how much I hated Martin O'Malley," and you're wondering where he is, well, this is the problem. He's actually part of the Biden administration. We could see a duet here between O'Malley and Blinken. Martin O'Malley is currently the commissioner of the Social Security Administration.
There you go.
So that talk about failing upward. It's 7:23.
Now,
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:36 on O'Connor and Company this Friday morning. I'm Larry O'Connor alongside Patrice Onwuka. Good morning, Patrice.
Good morning, Larry.
Coming up in just 10 minutes, he's the play-by-play voice of the Washington Commanders, Bram Weinstein. Give us a preview of the game against the Eagles. 8:05, Teresa Summers Farm. Talk about all the great fall festivities they've got planned for you. And at 8:35, Brett Baer of Fox News Channel. Yesterday, in the House Oversight Committee, we began the hearings of the impeachment inquiry into Joe Biden. And the defense of Joe Biden can best be summed up by one of the wisest members of Congress, Representative Jasmine Crockett for the Democrats. Here's what she had to say.
But I will tell you what the president has been guilty of. He has unfortunately been guilty of loving his child unconditionally, and that is the only evidence that they have brought forward. And honestly, I hope and pray that my parents love me half as much as he loves his child.
Well, it's hard to argue with that defense. Representative Andy Biggs, Republican of Arizona, was there. And I don't know, Congressman Biggs, I've known you a long time. I had no idea that you were so anti-fatherhood. And you were, what is wrong with you, sir? What is your problem with a man's unconditional love for his son?
Oh, my gosh. You're starting me off. That makes it very hard for me to respond rationally.
Yes. Do your best.
Yeah. That kind of got to it. You got to the heart of the meat of the defense of Joe Biden. He's a lover. He's a lover, not a fighter.
Yeah.
And particularly when it comes with the family. And good grief.
I want to say,
Terrible
I think
stuff.
you made one of the best points yesterday, and I'd love for you to sort of replay it here yourself out of your words for our audience, because one of the things that people keep losing sight of is, well, sure, there's nothing wrong with these guys making $20 million from foreign entities. And anytime anybody makes money, whether it's minimum wage or whether it's $20 million in foreign cash and gold bars, as many Democrats appear to enjoy, you're doing it in a capitalist system. You exchange a good or a service for that money. And you sort of laid it down here using Hunter Biden's own words as to what exactly was the service here. Yeah,
so the service that Hunter Biden and his business associates were providing was a brand. It was a brand, and the brand was the Biden family. But when you parse it down, they all admit it's Joe Biden. We're selling Joe Biden.
That's he was the product. Yeah.
He was the product. He's the product. They want access to him. They want a quid pro quo, which is what you got out of Ukraine. All of those things. Yeah, definitely Joe Biden. And there isn't anybody on the other side that doesn't get that, except for it was done with apparently unconditional love that he made himself available to Hunter to sell.
Yeah.
So, Congressman Biggs, we heard unconditional love. We heard Trump. And I also heard a lot about the government shutdown. And your colleagues yesterday, they painted this dire picture about not feeding babies milk and people dying in the streets. Can you give us an update on where negotiations are? Do you think that the government will pause for a day or two? Or do you think, and why is it that we're seeing kind of different tracks, the spending bills actually getting passed, which is a good thing, versus a continuing resolution that buys a couple more weeks?
Yeah, so the reason that you're seeing a lot of tracks is maybe there's a leadership is just kind of confused themselves, quite frankly, and where quite to go. But you got to pass the 12 bills. That's what the law is. That's the closest thing you're going to ever get to starting to ratchet down the spending deficit. So that's why the 12 bills of appropriations are so important. We've done now we've done 4.
Okay.
One went down last night, but and we're on track to do some more, and we can continue to do some more. In the meantime, though, if you keep doing the CRs, and I will tell you that's the life ring that's being tossed out, is let's just do a CR, and we'll do it for 45 days. Well, that takes you up to Thanksgiving, and I think we all know what happens about that time.
Mm-hmm.
Then it becomes, we really can't finish it. It's, we gave it a good college try this year, but we'll do it next year. So let's just do a continuing resolution for the rest of the time, and that'll be an omnibus. So you'll either do a continuing resolution, or you'll do an omnibus.
Yeah.
And that's why you end up doing $33 trillion in national debt. It's why you have a structural deficit in excess of $2 trillion.
Yep.
And why we're paying about $700 billion in interest charges alone.
If you had to put your money on it, or if you had to put, the federal government's money on it, will there be a shutdown at midnight Saturday night?
I don't think so. If there is, my guess is it's a 3 or 4 day shutdown, and then they do a massive continuing resolution, because there's three or four main CRs out there right now, and there's like a myriad number of variations of those on that thing.
Okay. Real fast, Congressman, we're speaking with Andy Biggs, Congressman of Arizona, one of our faves. The latest news on the impeachment inquiry is that Republicans in the House issued 3 new subpoenas for the personal and business banking records for Hunter and James Biden. By the way, I would have thought that you already had this stuff, but of course, this is the power of now moving into this impeachment inquiry versus the committee hearings that we had up until now. What do you think you're going to see in those subpoenas, and what happens when the Bidens refuse to hand this over?
Well, you're exactly right. That gets to it. That's why you needed the inquiry, because now we're in a position, we're doing it, so we think we can win in court. We're going to probably have to take it to court to enforce those subpoenas. We'll get those, and now you'll have a court that'll hold them in contempt, not necessarily Merrick Garland, because he won't. But we think that there is going to be massive amount. You're going to be able to follow the line of the money a lot better, just like Mr. Dubinsky, the forensic accountant, said yesterday. Yeah. When you get those bank accounts, you can follow that tracking of money, and we think it's going to lead into some accounts that we suspect exist. We've seen indicia of it, but those will be the Joe Biden. Joe Biden's got to get the money somewhere. Besides Hunter bailing him out for 30 years, as Hunter says. So,
well, listen, we always we're all about news you can use. We want our listeners to be a little smarter after every segment, if possible. And certainly we learned something today. If you're ever arrested for breaking the law, whether it's a high crime, a misdemeanor, or, murder or whatever, just say, listen, I'm only guilty of unconditional love for my son. And that's, that's a get out of jail free card, as far as I know. Right, Congressman?
Yeah, I practiced law for years. That's the one I should have been using.
There you go. News you can
opportunity.
Use. Thanks, Congressman.
Thank you,
Take
sir.
Care. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
He's have a busy weekend. A lot of late night. Well, it was a really rough one on Sunday against the Buffalo Bills, and Sam Howell with 4 interceptions. And now it gets even harder because the Commanders are on their way to Philadelphia. Ugh. Hate those Eagles fans.
We know.
And Bram Weinstein, the play-by-play voice of the Washington Commanders. I hope you're bringing bodyguards. You know how it is at the in Philadelphia there, Bram. Ugh.
I've learned my lesson not to drive my car there. If you go up there with a Maryland or Virginia or DC tag, you may come out and your car might be different.
Yikes.
So, fortunately, I get to go with the team, so
that's good.
You don't have to worry about it these days.
They're delightful people, and they've got a pretty damn good football team too. Although I got to tell you, they haven't looked like the Eagles last year. The Eagles dominated. Jalen Hurts just could do no wrong, and they were racking up the points. This year, they're winning. They're 3-0, but they don't look as good as they did last year, at least to me. But you're the pro. What do you say?
I 100% agree with you. That's the bad part is they're 3-0 anyway, which kind of ought to tell you how good their team is. And 2 of those wins are on the road, and so they're one of those kind of too big to fail type of things. But I wish they would have taken a ding by this point because I agree with you. Their passing game has been off. Their defense has suffered a lot of injuries in the secondary, so they've been susceptible to teams that can throw the ball downfield, and they've only really played one of them, but that one had a really good night against them.
Yeah.
Still, in the end, their secret sauce is their run game. It is so far in the NFL, it's been impossible to stop. They changed their running backs. They brought in DeAndre Swift from Detroit. He's rushed for over 300 yards in the last 2 games alone.
Wow.
They're the second leading rush offense of the NFL. They've been top 5 in it for 3 years running. Their quarterback is very elusive, can run as well. So there's 2 things here. I mean, if Washington can protect, which is a big question, I think they're going to have some chances to get the ball down the field against very active front but a very injured secondary. And if they can figure out a way to at least slow down the Eagles' run game, I think you're going to see a very different result than the one you saw on Sunday. Will it be a win? I don't know, but I don't think it's going to be like it was against Buffalo.
So last year, if you're an Eagles fan, you had a great season except for 2 blemishes. One, of course, the humiliating defeat at the Super Bowl. But the other, people forget, their one loss in the regular season was Washington in Philadelphia. So now will that sort of embolden this team to say, hey, we've been here before and we beat these guys? Or is this going to be a big revenge factor for the Eagles? It's like, oh, not again.
Here's an unbelievable number. Jalen Hurts' last 21 regular season games, 20-1. You just referenced the one. So trust me when I tell you that they remember this.
Yeah.
Now, I think, that there's – I often talk about this a lot, that, it's not really who you play, but it's when you play them. The Eagles were going really, really well last year, 8-0 at the time when Washington played them. But people forget this part. They were a big underdog because the Eagles were killing people last year. Washington was playing really, really well going into that game. They had a very unique game plan. They decided to run the ball and just not stop running it, and they ran it almost 50 times. It's a very unusual number. Even for the Eagles, that would be a really unusual number. They actually didn't have a tremendous amount of success doing it, but they stuck with it. They ground out the clock. They got a couple of turnovers. And, they got the football luck, and it went their way, and they won a very tough game. This year they have a very different offense. They're not running the ball like that. They weren't doing it last year like that either. They're more like 60-40 pass. So to repeat what they did a year ago would be to get away from what they're doing this year, and I would doubt that would be the case. There's a lot of people, yelling and screaming that, last week they got away from the guy who's really been their best asset this year, Brian Robinson. So I would anticipate they're going to run the ball more than they did last Sunday against Philadelphia. But a repeat of that game plan, to me, is unlikely. So Sam Howell's going to have to hold on to the ball, make a couple nice throws, maybe hit a couple of home runs, and who knows, maybe we pull it off again.
Well, I mean, my question was going to be, if they're not going to be rushing, then is there any strength to their offensive, anything that we can look forward to?
Yes, I think we have a great matchup with our receivers against their secondary. They've been really beat up. They're very young, specifically at the safety position. The issue for Washington has been protection, time, how making decisions quicker. It's all added up to a lot of turnovers and a league lead in sacks. They're going to have to be better. If they're not, they're going to be in trouble. This is a team that's caused second most turnovers in the NFL, 6 fumbles. So they're very active on the defensive front. Washington's offensive line gets it a little together. If Hal can make some quicker, better decisions, I think they're going to have some opportunities down the field. And I like him when he moves. I don't see a reason why they shouldn't roll him out of the pocket, buy him a little bit more time, trust his instincts on the move. And if they do, they've got some real matchup advantages with Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, and a really beat up Eagles secondary. So I see a path. It's going to be a hard one, but I do see a path.
Rolling out, scrambling, improvising. He's got basically he needs to channel Mr. Heineke there. I think that might be the way to go.
Well, why not?
And Terry McLaurin's ready. And McLaurin's ready for a breakout game. And I'm taking Washington in the points.
He had 8 for 128 a year ago against them. He's the guy who has killed them through the years. He's been their worst enemy, and I love the matchup with him this weekend, dependent on who ends up being on him. So I know I'm trying to be overly optimistic here, but I don't think it's unrealistic. And to your original point, if you really go watch the Eagles and you really kind of broke it down, you'd be surprised they didn't lose one of these 3 games that they played at this point. I think their record's a little deceiving to how they're playing right now.
They ain't so good. They ain't so good. We got them. All right, Bram, you got me fired up. Let's go. Can't wait for Sunday. Thank you, Bram.
Thanks, Bram.
All right, see you guys.
It is 7:54 now, and